Thanks for the confirmation. So without further ado, let's get started. So welcome to all the participants to this launch webinar of Certificate in AI Engineering and MLOps presented by IIT Bombay. In today's session, in the next 45 minutes to an hour, we'll be understanding what this certificate has to offer. We will go through the the detailed communication on the curriculum part, detailed walkthrough of that. You will have a look at that. We'll also understand what are the key offerings of this particular certificate, of this 5-month certificate, and what you will achieve at the end of it. And all of that walkthrough will be given directly by the IIT Bombay professor and CEO from Educational Outreach from IIT Bombay. So without further ado, let's get started on the speaker list. So first of all, we have Professor Shiva Subramanian Gopalakrishnan. He's professor with Department of Mechanical Engineering at IIT Bombay. He's going to be the key faculty for this particular certificate. We also have with us Ajay Mehta. He is CEO at Educational Outreach, which is a key division which brings many of these certificates, EPGDs, to the fore for working professionals from IIT Bombay. We also have with us Harish K. Subramanian. He is VP and Head Academics at Great Learning, and Great Learning is the EdTech partner, official EdTech partner for this particular certificate. And my name is Ujjwal Kumar Singh. I am Deputy General Manager at Great Learning. So on that note, over to Ajay. Ajay, for if you can walk us through this particular slide.
Thank you, Ujjwal, and a very warm welcome to everybody to this webinar. I'll just give you a quick overview about educational outreach. Essentially, educational outreach is a division within IIT Bombay that's been created to take the IITB education to students beyond IIT Bombay. We offer a portfolio of courses. These courses could range from diplomas to professional certificates to completion certificates. We also have joint certificate programs. So the intention, like is mentioned on the slide, is to provide access to high quality education to both industries and graduates. We design the programs so that they are industry relevant for working professionals to upskill the existing workforce with all the new technological changes. As you know, I don't think the kind of change that's happening in the industries is unprecedented, and we are trying to play our part in it to upskill the workforce. We offer rigorous upskilling opportunities. We have programs that are targeted, of course, not relevant to this audience, but to right from high school students to undergraduate, postgraduate students to early, mid, and late career professionals. We also have programs targeted at the government, at the bureaucracy, as well as for faculty in other institutes. So like I said earlier, we offer certificates. These certificates could be certificates of participation. They could be certificates of completion. We also offer professional certificates and partner with industry, with corporates in the industry for joint certificate programs. We offer the EPGD, which is the E-Postgraduate Diploma, which is a slightly more detailed program, which could range from 1 to 3 years, where students actually earn credits in the programs and the courses that they complete successfully. We have programs which are open programs, which means we launch these programs and they are open to learners at large, depending on the eligibility criteria. These could be in-house, which means it could be customized for some corporates. They could be online, or they could be in-person or hybrid. So these are a mix of programs that we offer. And of course, we also offer through the NPTEL channel, we offer courses which many of you may have done in the past. NPTEL, as you know, is sponsored by all the IIT, the main IITs, and is run by the Ministry of Education. So that's what we offer. We offer a portfolio of programs. It could range from something like what you're doing right now to we also offer programs in humanities and social sciences, in core engineering subjects, in design. So we have a vast range of programs that we have on offer from time to time. So in case you're interested in other areas, you're most welcome to visit the website and explore them. But again, I think this is one of our flagship programs that we are running, and Professor Shiva is an expert in this field, and I think you should consider yourself privileged if you're able to go through this course. Very, very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you to Professor Shiva for agreeing to anchor this program, and to the Great Learning team to take it to the learners. So thank you very much, and back to you, Ujjwal.
Thank you. Thanks, Ajay, for that quick introduction. Over to Harish for speaking about great learning.
Thank you, Ujjwal. And thank you, Ajay and Professor Shiva for spearheading this effort. And I'm sure the learners are going to be in for a wonderful program. So thank you for kicking this off. And I'll echo Ajay. Welcome to all of the participants in this program. I'll be fairly brief in describing great learning. This might be the first and last time you hear from me about great learning, but we do partner with IIT Bombay in bringing this program to you. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you a sense of who we are and what our respective role is in this program. We have a lot of people talk about edtech, and edtech companies. We consider ourselves education first and tech second. As an organization, we take a lot of pride in partnering with some of the world's best universities, IIT Bombay included. We partner with universities in the US, in India, in Australia, and the UK so far, and some parts of Europe. We know that faculty have faculty time, especially good faculty time, is precious. Right? So Professor Shiva is being pulled in multiple directions, between research, teaching, teaching on campus, teaching online. His time and other faculty's time is precious. Our philosophy has always been, to the best of our ability, support the faculty, support these top institutions in delivering their learning and providing high quality learning to as many people as we can. There's a version of this, obviously, as Ajay was mentioning, that is completely asynchronous, recorded videos and that are on NPTEL, that is on SWAYAM, that are on some other platforms. They have their place, they have a role to play. But a lot of what we do is working with faculty and universities like IIT Bombay to bring live, interactive, and hybrid learning models to learners. Nothing beats live interaction as much as possible. So a lot of these programs are highly engaging, highly interactive, and give the learners a great opportunity not just to learn from faculty, but also to learn from each other. And that's why a cohort-based experience is also really, really important. We bring such experiences to learners, and we've been doing this for nearly 15 years. We've had millions of learners go through our platform. Some of them going through some of our free learning resources, but a lot of them going through these structured longer certificate and online degree programs. We have a global learner base. The reason I'm telling you all of this is just to give you a sense of the amount of experience we bring to the table in terms of just execution and learner support. Ujjwal, if you go to the next slide, I can talk briefly about where what our role is in the grand scheme of things in this overall delivery process. Professor Shiva can elaborate and give you a lot more context about the program itself. But the way to think about our role in all of this as Great Learning is we are here to support Professor Shiva and you, the learner, in going through an efficient and effective learning process. And this program has been conceptualized by the IIT Bombay faculty. It has been designed by them. It will be delivered by Professor Shiva and his peers at IIT Bombay. The curriculum is industry relevant. We, of course, participate with the faculty in bringing some industry perspectives to help keep the curriculum refreshed. That said, the core of the program is and always will be the faculties and IIT Bombay's. You will learn weekly through live interactive sessions with the IIT Bombay faculty, and you will be expected to do a fair bit of hands-on work, right? This is not a sit back and passively watch videos kind of a program. That's not the idea. This is meant to be hands-on. This is meant to be interactive. Learning is hard. You will be put through your paces. You will be expected to do in challenging things. So brace yourself for it. And obviously my own personal from all of the millions of people who've gone through this, I think it's people who've gained the most from such programs are ones who have put these as a priority, structured this into their calendars, let their peers, their families, their workplaces know that they're taking this program, so they're aware that this is a ring-fenced time, over the course of a week. If you miss sessions, it'll be your responsibility to catch up. So just make sure that you take this program seriously. Of course, it is a really, really high quality program, and you'll hear a lot more about it from the faculty, but just make sure you take that seriously. It's not just an online course as some people might expect. Also make the most of your peers' experiences. Our role as Great Learning is, as I said, is here to facilitate. Ujjwal leads the program management office for this program, which means his team will be the first port of call for a lot of you. If you have questions, if you have concerns, we regularly solicit feedback so that you're able to give feedback on both the topics taught as well as any structural issues you might have. Feedback such as this is hard. Of course, we take it. It's constructive feedback, but it's meant to be hard, so you can expect that. But yes, you should be comfortable in the knowledge that your feedback is always heard and acted upon, passed on to the faculty themselves, so they're able to review and make adjustments accordingly. You might have other issues around just access to the platform, or travel, or all these other constraints that you might have. That's also where the program management office led by Ujjwal is here to support. So in a nutshell, we're here to support and facilitate your learning journey, while Professor Shiva and his peers at IIT Bombay are taking you through the your intellectual paces over the course of this program. I'll stop here. Once again, I welcome all of you, the learners, and hand it back to Ujjwal and Professor Shiva. Thank you.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you for that walkthrough and walking us through the key highlights of the program. In the next part of this particular session, we'll be hearing from Professor Shiva about the detailed walkthrough of the curriculum and who this program is for. And in the last part, we will understand the eligibility criteria and how to get yourself admitted to this program. So till that time, you can hold on to the questions related to eligibility. And after understanding who this program is for and the curriculum, I think you will be better informed on that. So over to Professor Shiva for the next segment.
Yeah. Right. First of all, thank you, Ujjwal, for introducing me. I would also like to thank, Great Learning, Harish and his team, and the Education Outreach's office at IIT Bombay, Ajay and his team, for helping me set up this course. So first of all, let's get us familiarized with why this course is necessary, right? Because one of the biggest transformative things that we have seen in the last couple of years, and just sort of really exponentially changing our lives on a day-to-day basis, is machine learning and artificial intelligence. I don't think there's a day that goes by where we don't read some news clip, either in the positive or sometimes even in the negative, about AI and ML. And so we need to sort of understand why this course is, first of all, needed in the first place. So what do we mean by AI engineering and MLOps? And then obviously, for whom is it designed? Who are the people who will actually sort of require skills that are going to be taught in this course? And what are also some sort of the prerequisites that are required as you're coming into this course, right? So as I said, clearly the biggest transformative thing that we have had is AI, and it's a lot of buzzwords. And you see a lot of buzzwords that are being thrown around every day, in and out, in industry settings, in academia, in the news coverage. about AI. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts, how do we actually implement AI, and especially machine learning operations on the hardware? How do we actually usefully deploy it for our personal use? And when I mean personal use, it usually means some sort of mission objective. This mission objective could be for your organization, for some other cause, for some governance, for whatever it is. So you can define this objective of using AI for some purpose. But then the real question comes is that how do I go about actually going and deploying it, right? And when you need to deploy it, you need to deploy it on real world hardware. You need to sort of cut the noise out about all the buzzwords and actually get your hands dirty and make these implementations. And these implementations need to be robust, they need to scale, and they need to serve all the purpose that you're designing this objective for. Okay, so we will have enough time to answer your Q&A towards the end of it. So let me just sort of walk you through what the curriculum will cover in this certificate course. And firstly, for whom is it designed? So this is designed for somebody who already has some reasonable exposure to AI and ML. Okay, so if you're coming fresh off the boat and you have no clue how AI algorithms work, or you don't know that you want to understand the basics of AI math, etc., then there are a plethora of other courses, both which are the IIT Bombay, EO, Great Learning, and several other platforms serve up. You need to know this and then you need to come, right? So this is not a course where you will learn the basics of AI from. This is more about implementation of AI models in sort of practical deployments. So the other thing is that programming, right? So you need to have a reasonable level of programming and reasonable understanding of how to write code and implement stuff. You need to have some level of comfort over there. So again, this is not if you're fresh, from school and you're not very skilled at programming, etc. So there are again a plethora of courses which you can take and then sort of look at this somewhat further down the line. So I would say that this course is possibly designed for early to mid-career professionals who are either data and AI professionals, are in software development, who are in basically DevOps, right? So you want to sort of take and apply your AI models for your organization at scale. So you would have seen about the fact that while there are publicly available models like Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity, Gemini, so on and so forth, and there are people who learn to use that. There are also people who go and build their own AI models based on their data sets, based on their specific domains, right? For example, you could be a stock trader and who has a wealth of information of stock prices and all these other things, and now you have a lot of proprietary data and you want to train your own AI model on the data that you want and then sort of deploy it for your organization. So it could be somebody like a finance professional, or you could be an engineering firm designing something like, say, cars, right? So, for example, you could be from a large automotive manufacturer and you have a whole plethora of data that you have collected over decades, and you want to create your custom AI solution so that you can better engineer your products. And so you are now tasked with the idea of coming up with these models and sort of implementing it in your own private cloud, right? So these are the people that you would sort of, these are the people whom we would expect to train. Like, you should be capable of doing these kind of deployments at the end of this certificate course. And obviously, this is also useful for technology consultants and tech managers who want to basically evaluate these platforms when they're presented to them, to know how this tech actually sort of works, so that they are not sort of blindsided when you have to make sort of estimates about how this tech works and what is it costing and so on and so forth. Okay, so we could now just go to the next slide. So the curriculum is sort of broken down into 4 modules over here. So in the first module, we will just do a very basic brush up of AI and machine learning. As I said earlier, this is not a fundamentals of AI and machine learning course. We are not going to cover it completely in depth. That's a semester-long course itself that is being done elsewhere. So we expect you to understand a little bit of basics of AI and machine learning before coming in. And we will just sort of brush up a few skills. We will provide some sort of refresher materials, pointers to refresher materials if you've already undergone this course, sort of to to take it before you start this course. Then the real things start happening, right? So we will start talking about high performance computing. So one of the biggest things about AI, which most of you would have heard, is that it's data, 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 and data, more data. There's like tons and tons of data. And tons and tons of data means we have billions of parameters which we need to tune. You would have heard that one of the largest models today is almost like 600 billion parameter models out there in AI, which are running, right? Now, obviously, in-house models will be somewhat smaller than that, but they're still large enough that they will sort of span multiple machines, right? So you want to know how I can deploy or rather employ parallel computing. It's beyond the capacity of any single workstation or single high-end server to manage these AI and ML workloads, right? To give you a very simple, rule of thumb, the amount of RAM that you require for the number of parameters is roughly half. Like for example, if you take a 12 billion parameter model, you roughly require 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now think about it. Now we're talking about 675 billion parameters. Think how much RAM that you want, and this is just for the inference part of it. There's obviously the training part of it, which is far more computationally intensive as well, right? So what I'm trying to say is that all these AI and ML workloads are very, very compute intensive. You would have seen the analogy of that in news reels saying that, all these data centers are coming up and AI data centers are going to start using tons and tons of energy. It's going to cost millions of dollars in electricity. It's going to affect electrical grids, so on and so forth. So the question is that when we are now deploying all this on these large data centers, we have to first parallelize our algorithms, right? And so we need to understand the fundamentals of how these algorithms actually work. How can we sort of efficiently parallelize these algorithms, and how do we efficiently use them? So that's essentially what we will talk about in module 1. We will talk about the different kinds of parallel hardware that is there. Excuse me. So what do I mean by a parallel computer? Now, at the simplest, you will think that, okay, my laptop or my desktop machine, or even my cell phone for that matter, is a multi-core CPU, right? So it will have 8 cores or 10 cores. Or, if it's a high-end workstation, it might even have about 128 CPU cores. But to really deploy AI and ML models, you need several hundreds of thousands of computing cores. And that's usually split up over several nodes. Like, so now how do I program these machines? How do I distribute my algorithm over these machines? You would have heard that, okay, I need to take my AI model onto a GPU. Without a GPU, nothing works. First of all, we need to understand how GPUs work, right? And then once we take it onto GPU, we quickly realize that even one GPU is not sufficient to run very large models or even medium-sized models. So you have to now use multiple GPUs, right? So how do I use multiple GPUs to train my model, to do inference on my model, so on and so forth? So we need to understand all this sort of parallel compute, this data parallelism, how do I communicate, so on and so forth, right? So the module 1, which will essentially contain all of the understanding of the hardware and the parallelism. Once we know how this hardware works, then module 2 comes in where we talk about containerization, right? We want things to be reproducible. We want things to be moved easily from one machine to another machine. It should not be such a case that, oh, you know what? I took all this effort and programmed this one large parallel computer, but when I take it to another machine, I have to put all these efforts again from ground up. That's never a good thing. So this is where containerization comes in. How can I sort of plug and play? How can I, in the real live world, migrate my container, say, from one parallel machine to another machine? How do I manage these large-scale containerized ML workloads? How do I do efficient resource management? Because remember, in the same organization, you will have access to only one sort of big computer. And that computing center or data center will have several, jobs competing for the same resources. So how do I do resource management? How do I do my workflow management? How do I effectively look at this data parallelism? That's essentially what you do, how to sort of automate it, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Okay. And then we will come to the thing about training large models, right? So as I said, as we go further and further, like every organization will now want to build its own large language model. We will not be relying on, a general purpose GPT like Chat GPT or something like that. Every organization, depending on what is your objective, you will be building your large model for itself. It could be finance, it could be engineering, it could be medicine, it could be humanities and social sciences, it could be economics data. I'm not an expert on all these domains, but what I can tell you is that once there are large sets of data, I can take that sort of raw data and sort of train models on it. And how do you interpret the data? That depends on the domain expert at that time, right? So how do I model these, extremely large data sets over, these big, big machines? The other things that I would like to look at when I look at this machine is how do I train them quickly enough? So it's very naive to think that, if I've gotten maybe 10,000 computers, whatever I do will be 10,000 times faster. No, it's not. There is a sort of an organization model. I have to sort of properly distribute the data, reread this large volumes of data, and that takes a significant amount of overhead. So how do I actually do all this, distributed processing effectively? And once I'm doing this, how do I do performance optimization? Right? Where does my AI and ML workload spend most of its time? Is it communicating between different processors, or is it actually spending time on the computation, so on and so forth? So I need to sort of figure out all these things. And so in this module 3, we will be looking at that. And finally, when we come to the module 4, we will look at enterprise level MLOps. Okay. And what do I mean by continuous integration and continuous deployment in this case for MLOps? So those guys who are coming from the IT background, you probably are already aware of CI and CD, but you typically look at CI and CD in terms of code development, in terms of versioning of code and pushing codes. Let's say you have version 2.1 running right now, and you have 2.2 being developed. So you're patching in 2.2 in the CI/CD framework while keeping things live. In the ML world, things work similarly. So you now have data which is changing every day. You have large amounts of data which is being generated every day, large amounts of data which is being generated every day. You are now going to train your models with this additional data as it comes in through, and fundamentally keep changing your LLMs and your inference models, etc., as it is going. So how do you deploy it? How do I realize, okay, hey, this I deployed this additional data which is coming in, but a few weeks down the line, I realized, hey, that particular data which I put in is actually driving the model towards some sort of incorrect results. So do I take it out, put in new data, so on and so on. So this entire thing about doing CI and CD, especially with relevance to MLOps and AI and ML, is sort of important. And then finally, where are these infrastructures, right? So typically, most organizations will not have the resources, or probably even will not need to have an on-premise solution for the actual hardware needs. Almost, most of the time, it's sort of rented on the cloud, right? So a lot of you would already be aware on using cloud platforms for your daily software workflows and so on and so forth. So how do I do this cloud HPC integration? How do I do this cloud ML integration? How do I take most of my models which I have now trained, or I need to do training and put it on the cloud? How do I go about using the cloud resources? How do I do versioning? How do I do version control? And once the production is on, how do I do production monitoring? And then finally, we will also look at some emerging trends. We will see how things sort of evolve. The most important thing is obviously energy efficiency, right? I mean, we already know data centers around the world are taking large amounts of, sorry about that. So are taking vast amounts of energy. So much so that they will soon start dwarfing other applications, leading to another energy crisis. So we definitely need to look at energy efficiency in our AI models. Excuse me. Yeah. So could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So yeah, so as we said, right, so this course being, I like to see it as what I call it as a carpentry shop of AI and ML, in the sense that you'll actually be doing deployment, you'll be actually getting your hands dirty. The live lecture component will basically be introducing concepts for you. The guided hands-on session will usually work with some applications. And then finally, you'll have some assignments. And then there's going to be a capstone project, and there could be simple module-wise projects. Like for example, a sample project would be something like, oh, how do I do parallel optimization? Or if I do an inference service, how do I scale it? Can I scale it from say 10 CPU nodes to maybe 100 CPU nodes? If my number of queries increase, what do I do? So on and so forth. So that could be sample projects in modules, and then there could be these. There are these capstone projects where you basically design your entire MLOps pipeline for a particular application. You want to train a large language model for some data set that you have. So all these things will be covered in sample projects and sample capstone projects. Okay. I think that's pretty much it from my side. I think we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. Yeah, so these are sort of the lot of the tools, not an exhaustive list, but most of the tools which we would be definitely using and you will be learning to use over this 4 modules that we have designed in the certificate program. And with that, I will now hand it over back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Shiva. Thanks for that detailed walkthrough. I think it was very helpful for all the participants to understand what lies deep down into this particular certificate. Just summarizing the eligibility criteria based on what Professor Shiva just mentioned briefly a while back. So if you have an educational background, if you have a bachelor's or master's degree in engineering from a recognized university with a minimum aggregate of 50%, also you have a minimum of 2 years of relevant professional work experience, and you have technical skills of prior exposure to Python or C++ programming, along with familiarity with Linux command line and bash scripting and experience with version control. With all this, you will be eligible for this particular certificate. So you need to know all of this before coming. As Professor Shiva mentioned, this is not a program where you can come in without any AI familiarity or any non-programming background. So unless you have these things in your profile, you would not be eligible for this particular certificate. So this is the simple 3-step process for you to enroll yourself and register yourself for this particular certificate. So you need to apply. The application link will be shared with you, or else you can visit the site and fill out your details there. And with that, you will receive a call from the learning consultant and from the admissions office. With that, your next step, which is the interview process, which is the screening call, which will be scheduled. Post your screening call, provided that you are selected, you will receive an offer letter, and basis that you can pay the admission fee for reserving your seat in the upcoming batch. The total fee of this particular certificate is 1,65,000 plus GST. Of course, for blocking your seat for the admission fee, you will need to pay 20,000 plus GST for you to be blocking your seat. That happens, of course, in the 3rd step after you have received the offer letter. So that's the selection process, and this is how the certificate. This is a sample certificate. This is how the certificate will look like. It will be issued directly from IIT Bombay Educational Outreach, and upon successful completion of this particular certificate, you will be receiving a certificate something like this. And this is the site that you can visit. You can fill out your details and expect a call from the admissions office, and you can take it further from there. So let's move to the Q&A part. We have a few questions. So a request to the participants, if you can share your Q&A in the Q&A section, not in the chat. I will try to take the questions from chat as well, but it'll be useful if you can write in the Q&A section. So, okay. There is a question on what is the duration of the course. It is a 5-month duration certificate. So the total duration of it will be 5 months. The fee is already discussed. It is 1,65,000 plus GST. The eligibility criteria is also discussed. We also covered what licenses and tools will be covered under this certification. So I hope I'll just quickly go to that slide again so that you can have a look at the tools which are getting covered in this particular certificate.
Yeah, I would like to just add, I think the question was, will the licenses of the tools be covered? Most of these tools are free and open source, either free or open source. So it's going to be.
Okay, sure. There is no test as such, but there will be a screening call. As soon as you fill out your application, there will be a screening call. And in that call itself, it will be decided whether you are eligible for this particular certificate or not. So there is no exam as such, but there is a screening call which is there. There is a question on will there be a placement assistance? So there will be no placement assistance. This is an upskilling program. So working professionals who want to learn these skills will be eligible for this particular certificate. So there is no dedicated placement assistance as such. Freshers will not be eligible. Freshers, there is a question if fresher is eligible. There is a question on fee being paid in installments. You can discuss this with your admissions office, and they'll help you out with the details on this. So there are provisions, but you can reach out to your admissions office, and they'll be guiding you on this. There is a question: BTech in aerospace engineering is the candidate? Will the candidate be eligible? Professor Shiva, any words on that?
Yeah, I think any engineering major is definitely fine. It's not just engineering majors, but even science majors are fine with it. But as long as the some relevant experience is there, that's more important. They should have some experience, as I said, with programming and with also AI and ML in the past. It cannot be without any experience in that field. And I think that will be evaluated in the call.
Sure. There is a question, what is the expected time for the course to start? So that will be somewhere in July, I guess. So yeah, around somewhere in July. And the time of the session currently is not fixed yet, but it will be on the weekends. So either on a Saturday or Sunday, depending on the faculty's availability. So all these details will be shared with you closer to the program start. But yeah, around July is when we start. Yes, classes are weekend only. Can a person from outside India join the course? Yes, as long as the timing of the sessions work out for you. I think you can join it from outside India as well. Professor Shiva, there is a question on how many days a week will the sessions be, live faculty sessions?
Yeah, I think there'll be 2 days a week. Each, weekends and things. It'll be 1.5 hours each. Each session will run totally about 3 hours a week.
Okay, sure. There is a question, a good question. These projects, the projects that we showcased, involve large-scale systems, distributed training, scalability, MLOps. how much of this can be realistically done on a local machine, and when do we need cloud infrastructure?
Okay, that's a very good question. So we will start off slow in the sense that we will use your local machines to begin the MLOps, small-term projects, etc. But towards the end, you will be provided some limited access to a large-scale machine where you will be able to run, these larger problems. But yeah, it will be towards the end of the course, and you'll be given some amount of time on these larger machines for you to use.
Thank you. There is a question. What's the criteria for obtaining the certificate? Like any attendance criteria or module completion criteria?
So I think the criteria is to finish all the modules. Each module will have a small project and then also the capstone project. Once you finish all that, that's when you get the certificate. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a question, as an engineering manager, would this course enable me to learn on how to evaluate and arrive at the cost modeling of training the data, inference, and deployment?
Yes, not only about learning how to evaluate at just the cost modeling, cost in terms of both human resources, what it takes to train such data, and also in terms of the hardware resources of what you need at the back end sort of to run these models and for a continuous period. So all of this, you'll get a sense of it when you are doing this course.
There is a question, personal question on can internships be counted in experience, and can the professional experience be negotiable if the candidate has 1 year of experience?
I think this can be evaluated on a case-by-case basis based on
Yeah.
what experience the person has.
Yeah.
Because if the internship is associated with AI ML and the person has relevant experience, I think there's no harm counting that.
Yeah. There's a question around that you need like it was mentioned in the webinar that AI knowledge would be basic AI knowledge will be mandatory for this particular certificate, but it is not mentioned in the eligibility criteria. Actually, it is mentioned. So if you read the second clause, it is about relevant professional work experience. That's what it refers to. There is a question on what are the benefits we can get from this program apart from certificate.
Okay. I think more than the certificate, I think the certificate is just like sort of the final certificate to show that you finished this. But I think the real benefit is actually learning on how to deploy real world AI and ML in diverse environments. I think that is the most important takeaway.
And I think to learn directly from IIT Bombay faculty over live sessions, not over recorded content, is another thing. I think live interactions, and then you also get to visit the campus, IIT Bombay campus, in a campus immersion, on a 2-day campus immersion towards the end of the certificate. So that's where the whole, I think, through the 5 months, the amount of time that you will be getting of interacting with the faculty, asking, clarifying all your doubts. I think that's certificate is just an outcome of that. I think the time that you spend with the faculty and learn from them directly is I think the biggest outcome. Okay. There is again a personalized question, I think, can be taken up with the admissions counselor as well. A candidate has 15 years of IT experience in Oracle database, but no experience on AI. So will this candidate be eligible? You can have a discussion with the admissions team, and I think the profile will be evaluated.
And one thing I would like to add is that because the course is going to start only in July, you have 2 months sort of quickly learn the basics of AI, because you definitely seem to have the experience on the software and programming front. The evaluation will still be done, but 2 months should be sufficient to sort of go through the basics of AI, through different resources.
Yeah. There is a question on, is MCA candidate eligible?
Again, I would say that if the relevant work experience, professional work experience is there, yes, right? I think the educational background is more sort of a suggested one. But if you have the relevant experience in AI, if you have the relevant experience in software development, I don't see any reason why you should not. But I think the evaluation will be made on that call.
Yeah. A similar question. I think a director in prop firm who's training own models and have practical experience of 4 years in Python and creating models, but has a BBA degree. Again, talk to the admissions team, and your entire experience will be evaluated. We don't want to set you up for failure. So your profile will be screened properly. Otherwise, we don't want you to struggle when the rest of the batch is undergoing a certain level of discussion. We don't want you to struggle, and that's where your evaluation will be done very strictly. And if you are eligible, you will be a part of the batch.
Yeah, as a rule of thumb, what I would like to say is that we would like to maximize your success and maximize what you get out of this course.
Yeah.
It should be something like, you came in and you really enhanced and learned something new from here. If you're lost at sea, we don't want that, because then it doesn't really serve the purpose, right? In the sense that you really then didn't get out anything from this course apart from maybe just a certificate. We are not in that thing. We really want you to succeed, and we really want you to get the maximum out of this course. And that is the reason why we frame these eligibilities. But as we said, this is not like a strict eligibility in some sense. On a case-by-case scenario, we will make these evaluations.
There is a question on the job market. Is it more valuable to specialize in data science, which is analysis and ML modeling, or AI engineering, MLOps, which is deployment and scalability? Which path has better hiring demand for someone at entry to mid-level?
See, I cannot directly answer that because I'm not in the process of hiring these people. I'm actually in the process of training people. But if you really think about it, both these skills are required. Like going forward, every industry will want to have both the analysis capability and the deployment capability, right? And every industry or every organization worth its salt will want to protect its proprietary data, because as we know that data is the new oil, right? So everybody will really want to protect their data. So you're not, unless you get into the organization and you actually convince, okay, I'll be able to push something and do something for you. Getting general purpose GPTs will only take you that far, right? So, for example, just to think about a large steel company or something like that, right? They will have decades of proprietary data. They're not going to release it to ChatGPT. They're not going to release it to Claude for them to be trained on that model. You'll have to get into the industry. The IT team in that industry will have to sort of develop these models and then deploy it. So, yes.
I think on the Q&A section, we have covered all the questions. A few questions I can see in the chat as well. Post completion of the certificate, will the candidates have access to cloud platform for testing?
So as I said, during the course and towards the end of the course, we will give you some amount of access. Obviously, we cannot give you extended access beyond the course, etc. But once you are done with the course, you will be sort of comfortable in using most of the cloud service providers. And you can take it from there. You can pay whatever the requisite charges, etc., and take it from there. So you will not be hampered by the fact that, oh, I do not have my own, personal big desktop or a workstation or access to a cluster sitting on my desk. You should be able to just, use your regular laptop and use any sort of cloud service provider to do whatever you'd like after the course is done.
Yeah. I guess I think we have covered all the questions, even in chat, the questions which are there. In general, if you have any doubts about whether you are a fit for this particular certificate or not, do visit our website, fill out your details, and our admissions team will guide you on the next steps. Once you share your entire profile with them in more detail, that will help them also understand you better, and I think the next steps can be decided accordingly. Yes, I think there are any other questions in Q&A. I think, yeah, we have covered everything, Professor Shiva. So thank you to all the participants. I hope with all these details, you will be in a better position to take a call on joining this particular certificate. And very excited to see all of you at the other end of this particular certificate and in the classes. So thank you, Professor Shiva. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Harish, for taking out time and walking the learners through all the details of this particular certificate. And we are very excited to have all of you on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.